and this is a big one. I feel like this is the first non Pacific Island identity topic we've had with our few meetings, and this is appropriation versus appreciation. And Joy, I'd like to turn this over to you because you have a specific incident which this kind of stems from, even though it's just such a broad term, and all of us see this in a bunch of different ways. You actually had a very specific happening that this kind of we got this topic rolling on. So I'm giving it to you.
All right, perfect. Thank you. So yes, appreciation versus appropriation. Now, I'm sorry, I do not have that picture on hand right now, but what it is there's a couple in Fiji. We have diverse cultures, yeah, and what it is there was this Indian couple who decided that for their wedding they will wear the traditional Fijian masi, tapa, or what is the word for it in your different language? Siapo, is it? Yeah. So the issue that I had with it was the girl was fine. Half of the picture was fine. The girl, she looked pretty and beautiful in the costume she wore, but the guy wore a what we call a masi kuvui or masindamu. Now, this is a siapo that is brownish red in color. Yeah. And for us in Fiji, this is traditionally reserved for chiefs and higher ranking people, that is heralds, minor chiefs, higher chiefs. And even then, a herald will not wear the full siapo, masikuvui, but will only wear a sash to show that even though he's of a higher rank, he's not fully a chief. But a chief will wear a full set, beginning from headdress all the way to the bottom. And this guy was wearing the full set, but just without the headdress. And I had an issue with it. And people started calling me out as a racist. And it was really difficult for me to try and filter through the conversation. But what I got out from it is these two words that people were saying, that some people said, oh, they're just appreciating the culture. So, which is fine. You know, if somebody appreciates culture, that's fine. But appreciation means you take time out to learn everything you can about that culture. You take time out to know why this is what it is. Why do people wear this for a wedding? Why do people wear this for a funeral? No, that's appreciation. What it was for that wedding, the only reason why he wore it was because he felt that since he is now a Fijian citizen, he can also wear it. And that was the only, in the article, that was all that that the groom had said. And I took issue with that because by saying that, he showed that he was not appreciating, but he had appropriated that piece of our culture. So I'd like to open the floor with a question on how far can we take appreciation before it becomes appropriation? Or maybe how can we turn appropriation into appreciation?
I just wanted to add really quickly, from what I had read of that article that was posted and the picture, it seemed to me, and I don't know for sure, but it just by all appearances looked to me like he was sitting there and said, I like this one because I like the color. You know, it looked like there was no any I can't say he was taught anything or told anything about it, but it just looked arbitrary, like it was less ceremonial clothing and more a costume.
That's the thing. So, I mean, it's not something you wear on Halloween, you know.
Oh,
you
Mousy, what's up? I see Mousy's hand is up there.
oh, sorry.
Nah, no
Go
worries. If you have something to say too, you can finish.
Okay, sorry about that, but yeah, it's like I said, it's not it's not a Halloween costume, you know. That's what I wanted to say.
I think the biggest thing for me is that our culture is so old that it goes back to when we were just villages on islands by ourselves, and what the culture basically was our means for survival, of living on an island and showing respect for each other so that we could maintain that harmony and peace while we were living together on this island with nobody else but each other to deal with. So when you take a culture that's old, that's that old, and then you get up to modern day, and people start to take these things that we use to keep harmony and use them inappropriately, you begin to then unravel that harmony, and it becomes hard nowadays, in our times these days, to identify that, because we no longer live in um, that same environment where it's like if you offend somebody and then it's bloodshed. But nowadays we're taught so much as Polynesian islanders, as Pacific islanders, to maintain that balance of harmony, that when you see something that's out of balance with that harmony, that it's immediately offensive, and you get that feel. And we've all had those experiences. I mean, with the tatau, with everything that is Polynesian or Pacific islander, um, each thing had its role to play in our culture, in showing respect to one another and how we dealt with each other. And when people just come and adopt it because they like the way that it looks, and they didn't have to pay the dues of going through all of that work to keep everything in harmony, then it's of course taken offensive, because you growing up, if you were to do that, you would be reprimanded. You would have consequences, whereas these other people don't have consequences for it, and because they're not subject to the consequences, they don't feel any obligation to have to keep our things sacred. And then that's where the appropriation comes in, when you're no longer keeping other people's things sacred and you're just using them for your own personal. I mean, when you don't respect it enough to keep it sacred, or to even learn enough about it to know what you're doing with it. That's appropriation, as opposed to appreciation. And it's not appreciation if you're doing it just like that, without thinking about it first. Then you're definitely not appreciating it. You're just doing whatever you want.
Sorry, that absolutely spot on. Nico, you got something?
Yeah. So I was going to say, I don't know if there's a word for it in Samoan, but in Tonga, there's actually several words that kind of hit at what you were saying, or like words that describe that sort of phenomenon. So there's tauhivaha, or tahiva for short. It's like maintaining and cultivating like the social spaces within your community or like your greater kingdom. Your fatongia. Fatongia is like your duty as like your specific duty as that person. Like everybody has a different duty. Everybody has a duty to the people in their api, which is their family, like their household. Everybody has a fatongia to like the church. Everybody has a fatongia to the king. So there's different like levels of your responsibilities you have. And there's also fukavenga, which is like your purpose in society, I guess. Like what role you play. And then there's also whakaapa, which is like just the respect that you show between different ranks and different people and different like statuses. And I feel like all of those things are so well maintained and well kept within different island societies, whether it be Tuvalu or whether it be Samoa or Tonga or Fiji or any of these places. And the fact that when people come in and take something like the Masikuvui outside of like the stratification of the society, outside of the ranks, and outside of the folklore and all of that, that's what causes the problems. Not because they're just taking clothing, like they could wear the Fiji jersey. Nobody's gonna care about them wearing the Fiji jersey. Nobody's gonna care about them wearing something that is just for every Fijian. But when it's something that's very ceremonial and ritualistic and where it fits into like this whole greater tahiva, that's when it causes problems like tu was saying.
Absolutely. Too.
Sorry, I just wanted to add on to that. Because I mean, and there's even one of the biggest issues that I found when I was steering this conversation on Twitter was that, you know, I found that a lot of my greatest enemy, or not enemy, but those who how could I put it? Those who were those who opposed what I was trying to bring up were my own people. And you know, on Twitter, on our group chat on Twitter, um, there I posted that there was this tweet, and it sort of I kind of broke down. I'm getting a little emotional here, but it really got to me because uh, that person said that he paid for it, like they paid for it, so it should be fine. They paid for it with their money, and because they paid for it, no one should really care what they do with their money. And that sort of brought the conversation to a whole new low for me. And because when I read that, I just couldn't take. I just put down my phone. I went and sat down somewhere.
I have to agree with you there. That feels dirtier. It feels even worse. Oh, it's fine. They paid for it. That makes it worse, not better. At least in my opinion. And I know what you had posted with that when you shared it with the group, and after reading that, I agreed 100%. It was, you know, that was really, and then especially because most of that thread was attacking people who felt like it was wrong in the first place. Was a whole, oh, these people have too much time on their hands, or these people need to learn how to let it go, and no, there's nothing, absolutely nothing wrong with not wanting the practices of your fathers and your mother and your ancestors, not wanting it to be sold. There's nothing wrong with that. I don't have anything further than that. And I see your nice your hand up there too. Go ahead. Oh, you did the clap. Gotcha. I'm learning the difference between, okay, no, that one's blue, that one's brown. Okay, gotcha. Understood. If I may, though, I'd like to play the devil's advocate for a quick moment, because while I am very passionate about my culture and the things that my ancestors practiced and preached, I am also myself personally, I am a Christian, and I know that the God that I worship is, according to Scripture, a respecter of no man, and we are here on loan. That said, one of the calls of Christianity is to love one another and to not be a stumbling block. But you know what? I think I just talked myself in a little circle here.
Yeah.
I don't feel like playing devil's advocate. No, I just don't like that was done. And if you folks listening or watching are part of the team that we're saying it's no big deal, no, I condemn it. I condemn that. No, don't do it. I hope I hope I'm not offending anybody here, but at the same time, I don't really care.
I think Nico has his hand up.
So, two things. I think what you're saying, like the fact that it made it worse that it was sold to them, I agree with that, because I don't know about in Fiji or in Samoa, but in Tonga, there are actual noble titles and chiefly titles held by non-Tongans, and
Oh wow.
That's something like you can even get like specific koloa from chiefs or from whatever honorable people as a non-Tongan, but it has to be something that's gifted. You have to earn it. It has to be something that they agreed to give to you. So I don't know about if Masi Kuvui could be gifted to somebody from like a high chief, but that honestly would be more respectable than just buying it. And then it doesn't matter what race they are, what ethnicity, what religion. If it was gifted from somebody of status, then that's one thing completely different from being bought. The second thing I was gonna say was that I saw a lot of recurring theme in that argument that said, it was like, why are you mad at them for buying it? You should be mad at the people for selling it. And I don't necessarily think that it's like a one or the other thing. I think you can be upset about either of those things at the same time. Because as an Itauke, you should know what things should be off limits to sell, that aren't even yours in the first place to give away. Because I'm sure it wasn't like a high chief that sold it to them. But yeah.
Well, that's an excellent point, Nico. And there is. Oh, I'm sorry. Too, you got your hand up there. Go for it. Go for it.
No, I put it up right after you started talking. So right after you.
We do have some titles in Samoa along those lines that are not. They're not in. I don't know that they're intended to be so, but they're kind of honorary titles that are that there are some there are quite a few actually non-Samoan title holders, but these titles that they have are typically not very up there in status. They're more honorary, and a non-Samoan can get these titles by kokua to a title or to a family or to a village if it's someone that's done like some seriously outstanding work for the community. They could be in the running for one of these titles. I don't know much more about these, and I don't want to call out any titles that I assume to be among these honorary titles, and then turn out it's totally wrong. So, but yes, just wanted to echo what you were saying, Nico, that there are titles that I don't want to say that you can buy, but that you can get through a service or a deed or something that greatly benefits the people. And it's possible that is, but I wouldn't think it's something high up. So with that, I'll pass it back to Tu.
Yeah. One thing that came out, one of the most a key argument against what I put up was people pointing out that in Fiji, at hotels in the tourism industry, that is, there are Palangis. They come and they get dressed. They wear masi, and when I pointed out, it wasn't that none of the pictures I saw had masi kuvui. They pointed out that even though it wasn't masi kuvui, some of them had it draped over the left shoulder. Or no, that's another. That's like another symbol there, because the left shoulder drape was for chiefs also. And when they pointed this out, I did some research and I found out that in most hotels, what happened was when they apply for these weddings to be held with them, they also take a gift to the local village or so, asking for permission for the costumes. And once this was done, they also did what I believe was a temporary adoption, whereby they would then be allowed to wear the masi, but not kuvui. But they wear the masi, and they'd also be, and because the sevu or the request was made straight to the chief, the understanding would be that the chief was adopting them. Therefore, they were allowed to have the left drape to show that who had given permission. And but what's happened is this only occurred in the 90s, and after the lately they have not been doing that. They just do it left, right, and center. Whoever wants to do it. So one thing that I was hoping with this discussion and what I did on Twitter, one thing that I was hoping to do was to bring to the fore what is essentially what is a key problem, which is the devaluing of our culture, of our cultural artifacts.
Yes, Maosi.
So thank you for the opportunity to speak. First of all, I know this is not the same thing, but a cultural experience that I had when I went to Savai, like the brother was saying about the Va. We have what's called in Samoa the Va Fialwai, and then there's the Va Fiangai. And it's just like you said, like we have different relationships in between, the master and the servant, the chief and the owner. We have the different relationship between father and son, between mother and daughter, between male and female. And one of the biggest tabus that we have in Samoa is the relationship between the brother and sister. There's only certain things that you're allowed to do between the brother and sister. And one of the biggest exploitations of the culture that goes on, and it's perpetuated by our own people, is the siva. Because we went to Savai in 2016, I want to say it's 2015. We went to Savai, and it's always been our understanding that when they do the taolunga and the taupo is standing up and doing her her final dance, you see a lot of these Samoan guys nowadays. They lie down in front of the taupo, and the taupo will put her foot on top of the guy, and that's it's the vaole ole tuangane male tufine. So that's something that's not allowed historically, but because of the I want to say because of how we use our culture nowadays to make money. We go to these sivas at these hotels in Samoa. They're continuing to do the practices in Samoa. So when you talk about things like that, it's of course the people who are selling these things, that the tufungas who are tattooing non-Samoans, and the chiefs who are giving titles to non-Samoans as well, they have a certain responsibility to it, but we have no power in anybody else but ourselves. I mean, the main problem I think is that as a people, we've lost contact a lot with our own education and our own practices, and it's now the responsibility of the individual to take it upon themselves to learn what is right and what is wrong, and to then teach it to our children, so that we perpetuate what is in harmony with our culture, and not so much the things that we know are going to raise eyebrows when we do them.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, in Samoa, we don't have so much a problem with people buying titles, so much as we give them frivolously. I mean, if you look at he went to Samoa maybe once, and immediately as soon as he got there, everybody's dancing at the airport, and then they gave him the Se'iuli title, which is one of the titles that's up there in the Malietoa family. Now, whether or not he's got a direct family lineage to Malietoa, that I have no idea, and I don't know anybody who does. But because of what he's accomplished, they just gave it to him because that's what they feel he deserves. So when he sits in the Ava ceremony, they have something to call him other than Dwayne Johnson. And those are the kinds of things that we are now continuing to practice these days, that we have no control over the bigger population of our people, but personally, individually in our own families, we can rectify this, in our own practices. When we have our own family reunions and things like that, those are the things that we can teach. Especially one of the biggest ones is the fa'umu. I don't know what you guys call it in your the chu. I mean, over here in Hawaii, it's gotten so out of hand that when you listen to the radio, they'll announce a concert on the radio, and after every artist, the Fiji is going to be here, and then after, yeah, and it's overplayed. And then if I was to go home to Samoa tomorrow and just chew for no reason, every old person in the village, well, come on, who's
Yep, they coming for you.
right? As soon as I do that. But over here in Hawaii, there's such a misunderstanding of what the culture is about that unless somebody stands up and says we don't do this for this reason, nobody knows, because everybody's not educated in that.
100% agree. It does fall to, because of the misconceptions and the way we're moving, it falls to the individual and the people within the families to educate their families. Nico, I see you've had your hand up there for a bit. You want to add on that, brother?
Just a short one. I think back to the Ayuli and the Tawalunga, or the Tawalunga, sorry. I think that might have been Tongan's fault, because we do actually do like it's like the Mehikitanga, like I believe it's the daughter of the Ulunganga, that when she does the Tawalunga, then the boy goes in front of her, and like her brother or her dad or whatever, and goes on the floor, and then she's supposed to walk over him at the wedding. So I think that might have been Tonga's fault, that it kind of diffused to Samoa, and you guys picked it up, like, and it's not necessarily part of your Ta'iwa.
I just know that the old folks, the aunties and the uncles, would go nuts when they saw that in a Tawalunga. But yeah, I'm sorry, I digress. Tu, what you got?
No, I'm sorry, Nico, were you done? Okay, yeah. So no, because one thing, what do you call that? The war cry. That's what we'll do. Yeah. That's something that's lost in Fiji. Because I'm not sure. You guys watch rugby?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, the Fijian Dimbi.
Dimbi.
Yes. Right at the end, that's when the war cry comes in. But it doesn't go chuhu. For us, it's wahoo.
Can you give us an example of said
I'm
war
in a
cry?
house. I'm in a house.
An
And my
extra
son will come
soft
after me. I will die today.
Oh, okay, Mouse, you got your hand up there, brother.
Yeah. So I appreciate the Toko coming in with his about the Tongan influence with the Taulunga. But my perspective on that is that this is something that if it started outside of Samoa, it's gone all the way back to Savai'i. I mean, there's no going back further in Samoa than Savai'i. So even if they did adopt a practice that was not indigenous to them, I mean, how does it get to Savai'i and become? I mean, I could understand maybe Upolu and places like even Kukuila that are a little bit more in contact with the modern outside world. But in Savai'i, they have no excuse. And I actually questioned the dancers about it. And what they told me was that they do it that way because that's the way that they feel the tourists are most familiar with the Siva Samoa. So yeah, I didn't have any other option but to ask the dancers, and that's what they told me.
It's interesting.
It is. It's very.
There's so many things in Samoan culture, though, that feel like one big competition. And so it felt to me like that the brothers or the cousins diving and showing that they're lower than the taupo, and her standing on them was like I feel like if it wasn't part of Samoan culture, it was coming eventually. It is like one step up, like, oh yeah, you got a beautiful taupo, we got a beautiful taupo. Oh yeah, you got a beautiful taupo. Or look at us, and then it feels like it might have happened naturally, organically in Samoa, one way or another. That's neither here nor there, though. But Nico, go ahead. My bad.
So, I just thought of like a different angle at this conversation. I don't know about other cultures, but in Tonga, for sure, we've seen a lot of a lot of other dances be adopted into Tongan culture, like the Ma'ulu from Samoa, the Tawalunga from Samoa, the Kailau from Uvea, like the Mako from Fiji, all these different dances. And that's something that's been going on in Tonga for probably thousands of years. So I'm wondering if it's different, if it's a different connotation when it happens between islands versus between islands and then the outside world.
I could totally see it being that way. Malsi?
I think what I want to say about that is, I mean, there was an example you guys just missed because I was on mute, but the Howley kids across the lake over there, I don't know if you can see them, but they're chewing at me from across the lake. But but yeah, with the whole dance thing, I mean, the thing that we got to realize here is that it's like you said about how if you touch somebody's neck, it's one of those things that's totally off limits in our culture, and there's an immediate knee-jerk reaction once it happens. And the relationship between a brother and sister is so sacred in the understanding of a Samoan and what it is to be a Samoan, that basically when the action of the sister putting her foot on top of the brother is the very I mean, it's the epitome of what you're not supposed to be doing. So and the thing that I'm getting about like living out here in Hawaii and seeing it done so much is that a lot of Samoans have become complacent to it, where they see it but they only kumumu on the side and don't say anything to anybody. It's like okay, like they talk about it amongst each other, but nobody goes up and this is not like when they teach the dance. They don't try to make a correction. That's why I say it's up on the individuals to then make the correction, because like it's all about what you understand and what's not being taught by the people who do understand it.
It comes back to being personally responsible within our sphere of influence. We ourselves learn, if we're fortunate enough to have learned from somebody, then we take that knowledge and we use it within our sphere of influence, whether we are teaching other people, whether we're teaching our families, and so on. Tu, what you got?